Hey folks, in case you missed it, Inside Amy Schumer is back on Comedy Central. Each week, Amy explores sex, relationships, and the general clusterfuck that is life, with sketches, stand-up, and more. Critics say it's brilliant and outrageous. It's won all sorts of awards, and everybody knows it's one of the funniest shows out there. Don't miss Inside Amy Schumer, Thursdays at 10, 9 Central, or anytime on the Comedy Central app. Okay, let's do the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fucksters, what the fuckadelics? I am Marc Maron. This is WTF, my podcast. Welcome to it. I hope you're doing okay. Heavy week. I guess it's all heavy, depending on, where you're sitting and what your life looks like and what you're paying attention to and what's coming down on you. But it's a heavy week. I'm on my way in a few hours. I'm going to go to a memorial for Gary Shandling. I'm recording this Sunday. But that's going to be a celebration of a man's life. We've gotten a little distance here, and not much, but it is an honor and a celebration of Gary's life. And I don't know what that's going to be like. I guess I'll tell you about that on Thursday. It's sad. But, when somebody's left some great stuff and you can, appreciate it and feel the grief and feel the pain and be with people that knew him or appreciated him, and you do that. That's what we do as people. And I'm not sure at a different point in my life that I would have been able to do that. I don't know why. I was brought up, with a certain avoidance of it. I guess we're all trying to avoid death, but, out of respect, and out of compassion and empathy, and your heart has to go out. Has to go out. Prince died this week. Horrible. Was not essentially one of my guys, but certainly I appreciated his music, and I thought he was a genius, and he was, fucking ballsy and courageous and did things no one else could with music and just with his place in the world and in culture. Took on the big shots. And a lot of people out there are really reeling from that, and it feels like, all these people are dying. That what a bad year it's been. David Bowie. I guess that's true, but people die every second. It's just that when they have a portion of your life in your heart, in your mind, it resonates, and obviously large. See here, I'm trying to frame it a certain way, and there's really no way to frame it. It's sad, and it happens, and there's no matter what we do to prolong it or avoid it, it's there. It's hovering. The knowledge of it is hovering, and something that we talk a lot about on this show. And one way or the other, a close friend of mine lost a loved one, and it was devastating. And I don't know what to do other than put my heart out there to them and make myself available in any way I can and offer my deep sorrow. And I'm just happy that I feel that. I'm happy that my cynicism has not caused me to be detached and unable to feel the sort of dark depth of loss in my friends or in the culture. It happens. I'm not sure it always happened, because I was so caught up in my own shit, so spiraling in my own little dumb world of neurotic pain and panic that I was not capable of empathy. And I think it's very important. And I'm not preaching here, but I'm just learning this about myself because I'm somebody that came into empathy sort of later in life. I didn't really have the equipment for it because of the way I was brought up. And I was always sensitive, but a lot of times that's just about you. But to really, be empathetic and try to understand the pain of loss in others is it's an important thing. And this is where this is like basic shit that I have to figure out all the time. Love has to win, and a lot of us have become cynical and detached and self-centered about things, and dismissive and snarky, and on to the next thing. But it's okay to feel pain. It's okay to feel fear. And if you can connect with the love that will enable you to appreciate the world is not a dark place. You know, it's important. It's important to yourself. It's important to people around you. I'm not always great at it. You know, I go right to you know, flashes of sadness that manifest themselves into anger, and then I want to eat something. Then I want to have some coffee. I want to have a nicotine lozenge. I want to get on Twitter. I want to check my email. I want to, you know, text somebody. I just want to get away. I don't want to feel it. The options to avoid feelings in the culture we live in now is like profound. It's all, that's what it's demanding of you. Get lost. Get a hit somewhere. Dodge it. Dodge the pain. Got to sit in it. You got to sit in it for yourself and for other people. I'm talking to myself right now. You know, sometimes music helps move me through things. I've been compulsively listening. You know, I get records, and this cat, Nathan Amundsen, who has a band called Rivulets, and I remember playing one record that he sent me, and I was like, this is it. You know, I like that sort of 3-chord, kind of slow groove, ethereal, a little bit of echo, a little bit of vibrato, it just that movement. And, you know, and I came across this one single that I guess he had sent me called Ride On Melina. It's on the A side, and I Told Jesus Christ How Much I Love Her. That's on the B side. It's a 10-inch. And I just threw it on, and, you know, and I get a lot of records, and I think I've listened to that thing like, you know, 50 fucking times in the last month, and I don't even know why. It's one of those songs that somehow takes you different place. There's a transcendence to it that's somewhat melancholy, but broad. It's almost like you're floating in the sadness, but it feels invigorating. And that's been very helpful to me this week. And, you know, I'm going to personally thank Nathan Amundsen. And, you know, I love when I can find a song like that just kind of soothes all the darkness without obliterating it, without detracting from the feelings, kind of lets you have them and lets you stay in them without feeling like you're going to disappear. And there's a lot of grief out there. You know, if you choose fear over love or fear over acceptance, you know, that's going to lead to bad places a lot of times. I'm sorry it's so heavy. I'm sorry it's so heavy. Yeah, I'm going to have to go listen to Ride On Melina a few more times today. Fucking thank God for that song right now. So we get a lot of books sent to us here, but one caught our attention. It comes out tomorrow. It's called Off Script, An Advanced Man's Guide to White House Stagecraft, Campaign, Spectacle, and Political Suicide. This was written by a guy named Josh King. He's a former campaign advance man, and it's about everything that goes into the optics of politics. And we know a little bit about that, actually. And Josh devotes a chapter of the book to President Obama's visit to this show. So maybe you want to check that out, Off Script by Josh King. It's a new book coming out. And if you haven't already checked out the new WTFpod.com, you want to give that a spin. You'll see right away that the site is powered by Squarespace, and that means it's powering everything you see and all the things you don't see. So all the site updating is now done on the Squarespace interface. It's super easy. When they say drag and drop, they're not kidding. Wherever you see a picture of the site, we just drag that picture in. No coding, no need to mess around with the size. It's simple. We can save things so they publish later. We can edit stuff on our phones. It's full service, and we didn't get some kind of special version of Squarespace that doesn't exist for anyone else. We're using the same Squarespace you would use. So use it, folks. Go get started on your own website, blog, or online portfolio today. It will look great on any device, and you have access to 24/7 online support in case you ever hit any problems. There's no credit card required to get started, and you get a free domain if you sign up for a year. Make sure you use the offer code WTF when you sign up to get 10% off your first purchase at squarespace.com. And to show your support for this show, that's squarespace.com, offer code WTF. Our guest today is Steve O. And that oddly plays into what I'm talking about, to reckoning with the fact of tragedy and darkness and death every day. You know, that's the gift of consciousness. You know, if you can get some peace of mind and some connectivity to your heart, and then to your heart to the world, you know, great. But Steve O is a guy who, you know, as a clown in ways, courageously confronts death for the most ridiculous reasons. And it seems ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, and it seems stupid sometimes. But I'll tell you, the first time you see that first Jackass movie, there is nothing like it in life. There is some sort of weird point to the camaraderie and to the risks they take for our laughter and for our surprise. And this is like what I'm talking about. Like I watched his Showtime special. It's called Guilty as Charged. It's on demand. It's on Vimeo. You go to steve-o.com, you can check out his tour dates. But as you'll find out when I talk to him, that there's only certain things he can do over and over again without really possibly hurting himself, and he has hurt himself. But why? I don't know. I tried to figure it out, but when you watch it, there's something bold, there's something crazy, but there's something that transcends death in those moments where these guys are doing stupid shit that could really hurt them, and sometimes do hurt them, and they come out laughing. It's a very immediate way, in a very hilarious and stupid actions that we're allowed to laugh at, and at that moment, really sort of laugh in the face of death. And that's a service. Life is disappointing, life is hard, but there's some wiggle room. So, it's up to you and your perception. Like, just the other day, I found out that I actually experienced this weird pain that I haven't had in a while, that I thought I was over, that I thought I'd moved past as a grown man. I have my special More Later, which is my new special, which I'm very proud of. And I can't believe I'm telling you about this, but well, it's not that, whatever. But, I'm very proud of that special, and you can see it on Epix, and you can see it on Amazon Prime or whatever that is, and Hulu. My IFC show, Maron, premieres May 4th. Very excited about that. I'm going to be on The Tonight Show, if everything goes properly, on May 3rd. But I had this thing happen. I wanted to put out a vinyl because I'm a vinyl guy, and I want to feel like on some level that I'm not your average vinyl guy. Though every time I go to a record store to find some new vinyl or trade in some vinyl, I see a bunch of other dudes my age and different stages of social awkwardness and weight problems. Kind of foraging through the bins. But I enjoy vinyl, and I like listening to new music, and I've had. I love Ty Segal's music, and I've had, Stephen Malkmus in here, and I've had, Michael Cronin. I have Joanna Newsom, coming up, and, and I listen, I've been turned on to a lot of music by these people, and, I know I'm an old guy. I get it. I know that. But I'm definitely in it. Music plays a big part in my life to stave off death thoughts, basically, like everything else. So I have More Later. I thought maybe I'd put it out on vinyl. I don't have to, and I could do it probably, a lot of places. I've been offered the opportunity to do a vinyl record. I did one for Thinky Pain. Comedy Central did it. But I thought that, because, I know Dan over at Drag City, the guy who is one of the owners, I guess, and, I have a relationship with them. I get their records, and I enjoy them, and I get excited about them. And so I thought, man, that'd be cool, man. Maybe I'll just ask Drag City if we can, put out a vinyl. I mean, just a small pressing, maybe 1,000, be cool. I'd add some, maybe do a bunch of stuff that wasn't on the special that's out there, and, be on the Drag City level at the cool kids, And so I pitched it. I'm like, look, that, I own the rights. It would cost just whatever it would cost to press them and put the art together, and it'd be a nice thing to have and nice thing for fans to have, and small release. And I didn't hear from him for a while. I wrote right to Dan, and I didn't hear from him. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll just move on and find another label, or just, self-release it. And, he got back to me. He said, look, maybe we can put it on, our secondary label. And I'm like, I don't know. Kind of want to make a Drag City record. Dan, I want to make a Drag City record. Then I don't hear nothing. And then I do one of those things like, all right, I get it. And I just write back and I go, forget it. I can do it myself. It's not necessary. It's just a fun idea I had. And I thought because we were all pals and, I want to hang out with the cool kids. Maybe you do it. I know you're doing another comedy record. He gets back to me, hey, man, I'm into it, but has to be a consensus here, and one dude not into it. So he just throws some nameless dude under the bus, who now I have to think like, that dude didn't think I was cool enough. I'm not cool enough. Nope, not on Drag City. Not cool enough. The guy who actually reinvented his life in his fucking garage and still works in it, who likes the garage sound. I got Bonnie Prince Billy. I like them all. Matt Sweeney I had on the show. I'm just telling you that some things in life come back around. And I actually had little fucking hurt feelings because I wasn't cool enough to be on a label that I love. And that's just the nature of being an old guy, I guess. So I'll figure out another way to put that out and get that out to you. Pow! I just shit my pants. JustCoffee.coop. Look, folks, it's been a few weeks now since we checked in on my new Movement watch. Let's check it out. Still ticking. These Movement watches are slick. People will definitely check them out when you're wearing them, and they're not going to cost you a fortune. Function, style, affordability. Check, check, check. It's all here. If you haven't had the chance to experience how a Movement watch fits around your wrist, this is your chance. They start at just $95, which is part of their philosophy that high quality doesn't have to break the bank. When Movement cut out the middleman, they meant you don't have to worry about huge markups, and the price of a stylish watch gets real affordable in a hurry, folks. Movement has grown organically, purely by supporters like you. It was crowdfunded from the start, and now you can join their more than 1 million social media followers to see what everyone's talking about. Go to mvmtwatches.com/Maron today, and they'll give you 15% off your entire purchase. That's mvmtwatches.com/Maron. All right? Transcendence. How do we do it? I had a nice conversation with Steve-O, and I'm going to share that with you now. This is me and Steve-O. Again, his special Guilty as Charged is on Showtime On Demand and now on Vimeo. You can go to steveo.com and check out his tour dates. And this was good. This was good. Enjoy. I watched the special last night.
Oh, dude, thank you so much, man.
What? I was supposed to, right?
Oh, hey, man, I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah, well, I find that when I have the time, I should probably do a little of the homework given to me. But obviously I know who you are, and I knew, here's my, my first thought was, because I remember when you started showing up at comedy clubs. Now I'm a comic.
Sure.
So there was a number of us who were like, what the fuck? What the fuck is Steve-O just doing comedy now? But when I watched it, it's not stand up per se. It's like a one man show.
Sure.
Right? I mean, isn't that basically what it is?
I would say so. I mean, it's definitely storytelling and incorporates stunts into it.
Right.
And I just try to make sure that my stories are funny and that.
How are they not going to be funny? Something's it's either your dick is going to be in there, or you're going to be falling out of something, or fucking the wrong person. I mean, you can't lose.
Man. No, but it's been going great, and I've not modeled what I do after anybody. Right. So I feel like it's original, it's authentic.
Well, when I watch it though, because there's always this weird thing with old comics where they're sort of they thought you just got. Basically, it was sort of well, he's just selling tickets because he's Steve-O. It doesn't have to do with comedy necessarily or stand-up. But when I watched it, it was you chose to use stand-up clubs to kind of workshop this funny show that has a narrative. It's got an arc. There's a beginning, middle, and end. You move through some shit, but it's like a theater thing almost. But yeah, I imagine that if you sought out at the beginning of it to do small theaters around the country, people will be like, no, we don't want you to burn our fucking theater down. Or
oh man, the number I used to do fire stunts all the time, and I was gonna do it on my special too, but the fire marshal got in and shut it down. But dude, tiny little comedy clubs with curtains and everything, and I'm blowing fire everywhere.
And they didn't. No one got in trouble.
I got away with it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But not always.
Not always. I mean, I never set a fire, but I was pretty rarely shut down.
And how's your health, buddy?
Outside of fake teeth, terrible tattoos, and an esophagus condition that's pretty manageable, I'm in pretty tip-top shape, man. It's all mental issues.
What happened to your teeth?
Oh, I've made a habit of breaking teeth, and like at first, I broke 7 of them in one go one time.
Which thing was that?
I jumped off a balcony at a keg party and.
Oh, this is pre-Jack?
Yeah,
this is a younger Steve-O?
A younger Steve-O, yeah, telling this girl on a balcony of how I was going to become a rad, famous stuntman, trying to demonstrate I said, imagine, a fight scene, and I pretended to get punched and just threw myself off the balcony, and I spun over the railing, and I landed on my face on the ground, and I broke like 7 teeth. Like I said, I had 10 stitches in my chin, a concussion, a fractured cheekbone.
How'd it work out with that girl?
It didn't. Right. And I broke my wrist too, man.
Holy shit. How old were you?
I was at that point 20 years old. I was 20.
And that must have just been like, there's something so horribly hilarious about that. Like you're trying to impress somebody, and then they had to call an ambulance.
I mean, like, not to if she's out there or whatever. She wasn't like the hottest chick,
right?
That's like the thing, and I was like,
that seems to be a theme with you,
right? Yeah, and there I was, like, face down on the concrete. I mean, I don't even remember landing, but I know because I needed 10 stitches in my chin, I had, like, a pool of blood growing around my face. I'm face down in this pool of blood, not even moving at all. And my buddies thought, like, if he's not dead, he's going to need that weed in his pocket. So, like, they came down and, like, rifled through my pants to get my weed out.
So when the cops came or the ambulance came?
When the ambulance came, yeah, and...
You got friends that have interesting priorities.
Right. If he's not dead, he's going to need that weed.
Right. We got his back on that. I hope he remembers his name.
If he is dead, we're going to need that weed.
That's like, it's such a specific world of fucking insanity that you've like always lived in. Where the fuck did you come from? Where'd you grow up though? Because I know you mentioned in the show that your dad's a successful businessman, but I don't get any sense of that.
I was born in England.
In London?
London, England, yeah. Well, specifically Wimbledon. 6 months old, moved to Brazil, spoke my first words in Portuguese.
Really?
Yeah, Dad was the president of Pepsi Cola Brazil. Like
that was his gig, so he was like
all of Pepsi Cola in Brazil.
He was a CEO type of guy.
Yeah, he ran the Brazilian division of Pepsi.
That's a big job. He was an international Pepsi Cola executive.
Exactly. And specifically the president of Pepsi Cola Brazil, and he like my parents had shit popping off. They were successful, like I was raised by live-in maids.
Yeah. But
that's why I spoke my first words in Portuguese because I was raised my parents didn't inspire me to choose my first words.
Right. So you were raised by this woman who was hired by your family.
Right. I guess. I mean, I have no recollection, or I don't even know anything.
Do you speak any other languages?
I don't, man. When I was in summer camp when I was a kid, I spoke apparently Portuguese in my sleep.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. And then I was 2 years old, moved to Venezuela, did nursery school there.
And he was what? Oh,
Dad
that was just
promoted to more like Central America.
So now he's overseeing Pepsi in Central America.
Right. And then moved to Connecticut when I was 4. I don't know why.
What part of Connecticut?
Darien, Connecticut.
Oh, that's nice, right? Yeah. So now that's where CEOs go to retire and hang out.
No, Dad was just getting started at that point. He was still working for Pepsi. I went to kindergarten in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I'd learned to speak 3 languages by the age of 4. I went on to completely forget 2 of them by the age of 5.
Yeah.
And moved to Miami when I was 6.
With your dad?
Yeah, with my family. Yeah, at that point, Dad began working for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco.
Oh man!
And so he was a tobacco CEO, and we
bringing home the cartons.
Right. We lived in Miami, but Dad oversaw R.J. Reynolds in South America somehow.
Got real American sort of not so healthy businesses.
Soft drinks.
But he was the guy.
So then I moved to London, England when I was 9.
Back?
But it was my first experience there.
Yeah. What was he doing there?
At that point, I want to say he was working for Del Monte, canned tomatoes and shit. Yeah. And then,
so you grew up like, all over the place, but pretty privileged. I mean,
super privileged. Yeah, I was super privileged, corporate brat. Yeah. And then 12 years old, I moved to Canada. Dad was, I want to say, the president of Nabisco in Canada.
You want to say, or you kind of think?
Yeah, I mean,
he worked for Nabisco.
He worked for Nabisco, but I think he was like the president of Nabisco Canada. I don't know.
He's like a high-level corporate executive,
right.
like food and beverage guy, and occasionally tobacco.
Right.
Did you get along with him? Did you see him?
Yeah, Dad and I are super tight.
Now, is he still around?
Yeah, I mean, he is. My mom's not, but my dad is. And
they stayed married through all this shit?
Through a lot of shit. For 25 years, they were married. And
she had it, right? She's like, I'm done.
Yeah, Mom was an alcoholic, and
oh, really?
Yeah, her alcoholism was pretty heavy, and Dad didn't necessarily understand it, and that was
no Al-Anon for Dad.
When I got sober,
yeah,
I told Dad, like there we were. Checking me into rehab.
Right.
And Dad's talking about, like, once we get this behind you, once we have this fixed. And I just snapped at it, and I told him, Dad, this doesn't get fixed, It's not going to be behind me. Like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. It's always going to be that way.
Right.
And I said, the fact that you still don't understand that after being married to Mom for 25 years is frankly pathetic.
Right.
And I said, if I'm going to I'm serious about this, and if I'm going to be serious, then you need to be serious too, or you can fuck it all up,
Really?
And I told him, you got to go to Al-Anon, which was, I guess, pretty insightful for a guy like just checking into rehab.
Right. You knew.
But I had just had so much of the history of my family, so I understood it.
Did he go?
He did, and after I don't know, after maybe like a few months, he said, like, I've been going to these meetings, and I want to, be supportive and stuff, but I just don't quite understand it because I feel like the people in the meetings are there for their own problems.
Right.
And he's like, I don't have any problems. I just want to, he's like, I just want to be supportive and sort of help you in your recovery. And I said, that's great, Dad. Well, next time, just hand me a beer and a joint.
Yeah,
call it a day.
Well, that's the fucked up thing about it is, like, they're stubborn in their ways, and they don't necessarily understand. Like, in their mind, it's a willpower thing. And then you just have to, part of it is willpower, despite whatever.
Of course.
But it's also the willingness and the, doing some of the spiritual work and working the steps so you can learn how to think like a human. But a lot of times they can't process that. They can't see it as a disease. They just don't understand, like, why don't you just, stop?
Right. And I'm glad you say that too, because there really is a lot of willpower involved. It's willpower that gets you off your ass and go to a meeting or whatever.
No, it's that you're right. It's not talked about a lot. It's talked about like it's a miracle or something. But in order to have the willingness or to get fucked up enough to want to stop,
right.
I mean, yeah, you got to go to meetings and stuff. But like, when you're sitting home alone, it's still you going like, I ain't going to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, I'm not going to do it. Maybe God's helping. Maybe that guy I called is helping. Maybe that meeting is helping. But I'm sitting next to alcohol right now, and I'm not drinking it. And that's not a miracle. It's a choice.
Right. I mean, people always say stay strong, and I think to myself, well, stay powerless is what they mean.
Sure. Right.
Because remember,
Well, yeah, but that's the beauty of that fucking that first step thing. We talk about this on the show, but is that, like, to really understand that you can't do it because there's no way to do it without getting fucked up.
Sure.
And to have that in your mind and in your heart, that's the trick, and that makes the choice a little easier.
Right. I mean, I was saying just earlier today that. Step one, it's like a paradox. There's so many paradoxes in the program. But in admitting that we were powerless over alcohol, we admit hopelessness, and in hopelessness is where we find hope.
Right.
It's paradox. So.
Well, yeah, and then there's all that that window into, like, really fucking dealing with who you are and, like, dealing with your problems and like you know what I mean, like the pain of sobriety, of like that insanity. But when did you start like, you don't have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older sister, yeah.
Oh, how'd she turn out?
She's got her own issues, but substances aren't really the thing. She is a high school teacher.
Really?
In South Florida.
In South Florida?
Yeah, even though she just stopped being a teacher and went into some weird, like, copywriting for, like, a financial institution kind of thing. It's sort of a weird situation, but yeah, she's like as normal as could be. And when she was a high school teacher, the kids would find out, oh no way, I've got Steve-O's sister as my teacher. Like, this is gonna be awesome. And then, like, after like day one, like, oh fuck, this sucks. She just disappointed like waves of students every year.
What they expect from her to come in on fire?
I I don't know. Like, they expect her to be like kind of cool or
a little bit nihilistic and nuts.
Right. I mean, we have enough in common, but then again, I'm not really nihilistic and nuts like too much. I mean, I think that like the reality of me is sort of would be sort of disappointing too to a lot of people.
Well, I don't know. Well, I think that whatever the reality is, there's documented evidence.
Sure.
Of you being nihilistic and nuts. And there's enough of it to where, like, even if you said, no, it's not really me, you'd be like, but dude, look, your balls are on fire.
That's true, too. My balls have been on fire. And they've been extinguished with kicks.
But so when does that, like, how much older is she?
3.5 years.
When how old are you?
41. I'll be 42 in June.
So you came up because you were a skate kid, right?
Not a super talented one, but yeah.
But you could do it. You did pools and shit.
Sure, that's what brought me to the video camera.
Right, because when I first saw Jackass, it's one of these astounding events in my life because I didn't know what to make of it, and I talked about it to Knoxville. Because, your first assumption, as a dude like me is like, who the fuck are these, alpha dicks being all, bro-y? And then, well, that's like a judgment you make before you go. And then you go and you're like, this isn't that.
Right.
This is like fucking punk rock insanity. This is like fucking crazy shit. And I was so impressed with it and so hilarious that, like, I'll only watch it. Like, I watched it the first time, and the experience of watching that thing for the first time is so overwhelmingly hilarious that, like, I can't, like, I want to watch it again, but I want to save it for another decade or so it's funny again. And I've watched a couple of the other ones, but you've made, like, what, 20?
No. We had 3 theatrical movies.
Well, I saw the second one. I didn't see the third one.
The second one was the masterpiece. I really think, if you asked me, the third one was kind of tired.
What was the... That was a 3D one? Yeah, I checked out at 3D.
If it wasn't for the technology, we didn't have.
Well, why do you think the second one was a masterpiece? Because you guys knew each other well enough to really kind of, trust each other or take chances that were... What was it?
I think that it was just the reckless abandon was at its peak.
Oh, yeah?
I think the reckless abandon, and I think that... that we weren't out of ideas, you know? Like, there was enough, and I think that there was a mixture of us having been at it long enough to have gotten kind of good.
Yeah.
But not too good, and still had ideas, and the reckless abandon.
Well, what remind me, what were some of the things that happened in there?
That was Knoxville did the rocket riding.
Yeah. Into the water.
And he put the cigarette in his mouth in the blindfold, and then the yak just goes and takes him out.
Oh yeah.
I had the fish hook through my face and got cast out to the sharks. Like, everything in that movie. And that was the other thing. It was just like a blessed production, man. Every time we did something, it just worked. Everything worked.
Well, where do you remember it starting this? Was it driven by music? Was it driven by a need for attention? Was it driven by
attention.
Really?
Attention seeking all the way.
That's
what drives everything I've done. It goes back to that neglect as when I was a baby in Brazil.
Well, so your dad was sort of like working and checked out, and your mom was
mom was pretty drunk. Dad was absent.
But that was tangible to you during your childhood that she was wasted.
Not until I want to say like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And then it was pretty acute.
Oh, and that's sad, man.
I mean, hey, it's nothing to bitch about, Right.
I
mean, I think that most things that are notable serve as advantages as well as disadvantages.
Sure.
Almost whatever the case may be. Did
you find yourself, when you were younger, did you find yourself feeling responsible for it or, trying to help her and that kind of shit?
No, not at all. If anything, the fact that when Mom was drinking, going to school became optional was a real treat. I didn't know, and if she was sober, there were boundaries and rules, and when she wasn't, there weren't. I wanted a hamster. I couldn't get the hamster until Mom was drunk.
You waited it out. You timed it right. You knew when to ask her.
Yeah, the word no didn't exist when Mom was drinking, and so in a sense it was really sad. But whatever. And Dad became more successful as I went through my childhood, and he was around less.
Right.
He was always on a business trip. And
Were there a lot of private planes in your youth?
not private planes, but there were definitely a lot of planes. Yeah. For sure. And my sister just sort of had enough. But when I was 12, she went to boarding school.
Oh yeah.
So the dynamic was sort of like mom got drunker, the houses got bigger, the family got smaller.
Yeah, and dad wasn't there.
Yeah, dad wasn't there.
So when you were in these like mansions, is that where you started doing crazy shit?
I mean, like really crazy shit didn't start until after I graduated high school. I went to high school in the American school in London, England.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I should say the really crazy shit started once I let go and let booze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing.
But like, who were you in high school? Was it because like you were constantly moving around that you had to make an impact wherever you sort of ended up?
It's so sad because like I was always such a desperate attention whore, and I was so desperate for the affection and approval of my peers.
Yeah, yeah.
And like this one report card from 6th grade said, Steve so wants the affection and approval of his peers, but everything he does to try to get that brings about the opposite result. So like that was like the story of my childhood.
That's on your resume.
I would just try, like whatever there was, I was just like, me, look at me, and it would just turn everybody off. And
because you didn't know when to stop.
I just didn't know.
Were you the kid that sort of like eat this? And
yeah, I mean, that was next level. I was like, hey, everyone check it out, and I would unscrew the cap off of the salt shaker and then just consume the whole thing.
Oh my God!
Like
right
really
at the beginning,
just upsetting shit. Where nobody thought it was cool.
Right, you went one step beyond to where people were like concerned and frightened.
Yeah, just not cool. And so like I had a really awkward childhood, and each time when I found out that we were going to move,
yeah.
I was excited. I thought, oh, this is great because now I get a new shot at it. Now I get it. Now I get to start over. And this time, I'm going to be cool. Right. They got a whole new shot. This time, I'm going to be the cool kid. But then everywhere I went, there I was.
Doing fucking crazy shit. Do you remember like any like moments like outside of chugging an entire container of salt?
Oh my God!
Were you just terrified your classmates like when you?
Dude, there was one, and I remember it so well. I was 10 years old in 5th grade in London. I went into my Spanish class. One of my very last baby teeth to go. Like it was just like
dangling.
Not dangling, like only beginning to show signs of loosening up.
Right.
So it wasn't ready to come out.
Yeah.
And I knew that like if I violently rip it out before it's ready, that it bleeds heavily.
Right.
So I walk into class knowing this, and I sit down next to the prettiest girl in the class, who I wouldn't normally sit next to, and I told her as I sat down, I don't have to be in class today. I can leave whenever I want.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like I was crazy, and then the class started, and I just ripped out this tooth, and it started bleeding really heavily. And I raised my hand to the teacher and said, hey, I need to go to the nurse. And the teacher saw the blood and said, go, go. And I stood up, turned to the girl, and said, told you. And so, like,
to the look of terror on her face,
just blood, like all this, you know how it goes. And I told you, and I just skipped out of there, and went like, whatever, just you were skipping through the halls, like it was like,
you were that freak. You were like a freak.
I was a fucked up, troubling freak. Yeah.
There's no way anyone was going to like you.
Right. Right.
But then somehow, how did you ultimately, like, I guess the Times culturally sort of like came to your assistance, because it seems to me that when you were growing up, I imagine in high school you were able to find at least a few dudes who were equally as crazy.
Not as much. It was sort of like Little League baseball didn't really work for me, but then like
what'd you play?
I don't know, like shortstop, I guess, catcher, pitcher.
No, teams were no good. What did you do on the baseball team? Did you fucking allow someone to hit you with the ball, or
no? There wasn't anything like that. At that point, it was just sort of when do I get home so I can go throw rocks and light fires.
But you're lucky you didn't end up a killer.
Right.
You just killed yourself.
Right. I mean, there was definitely. I mean, I don't know. I have this one really dark memory that, I remember, I think I was maybe 7 or 8, probably 8 years old, and walking home, living in Miami, and they were like these older kids. I'm guessing maybe they were like 12, and they were standing around with a knife. It was just a knife like this too, and like a buck knife or whatever, and a folding knife, and they had this big, huge South Florida bullfrog, captured, and they're all like sort of standing there. And I'm just reading it as I walked by, and I never said a word. I just walked up, and I grabbed the knife, and I just plunged it through this frog, until there's the handle was in the ground, through the frog.
Yeah.
And I just turned and walked away, and not a word was ever said. So,
You feel bad?
do I feel, I mean, I don't know. Do I feel, I'm not, proud of that. I don't think it's cool, and nobody thought it was cool at the time. but I mean, as far as,
the fucked up thing about it is no one even pressured you to do it.
Oh, no.
There's no peer pressure, do it. You're
The sense I got was that they were, that was what they were, sort of setting out to do, but nobody was willing to do it. And so, here's this little tiny kid, just give it to me, but not a word was ever said, and it's such a fucked up memory I have.
Yeah, there's these moments, but they were always driven by peer pressure. You seem to just pressure yourself.
Right. But that's a totally accurate observation.
You were going to trumpet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky you didn't really hurt somebody.
Right.
But you were never a guy that beat anybody up or anything.
No, I never fought, man.
Yeah, me neither. But the weird thing is, obviously, you're an extreme. But at what point were you able to sort of accommodate the discomfort of all this fucking insanity, the pain or the fucking?
As I recall, the Little League Baseball which was never really that much thing, gave way. Everything was always my identity. I remember. When I wore my Little League Baseball uniform, which was only for games, for a day, when you had an official game. But I would wear that uniform on the days I did not have a game. I'd going to the movies with a friend, and I'm showing up in my fucking baseball uniform because somehow that makes me feel like I amount to more.
Right, yeah.
In that suit, I'm a baseball player.
At the movies.
Yeah. Dude, there was when I was 9.
Oh, you're just a fucking weird kid.
Dude, I was 9 years old on this Little League Pop Warner football team.
Yeah.
And I'm triple national. I have Canadian citizenship because my mom was born in Canada. I was born in England, so I'm British, and my dad was born in America. So I've got I have all 3 citizenships.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 passports.
And that lasts a lifetime.
Right. You can only be a resident of one, but you can be citizen of all 3. So So it was when I was 9 that I had to go to the Canadian a passport office or the photo to get my Canadian citizenship card.
Yeah.
I felt the need to take the photo in my full pads, for my full pads game day football suit. To this day, I have the fucking card. I didn't have a game that day. If I did, I didn't need to be wearing shoulder pads with my fucking game jersey, in my fucking,
So you were able to track this now as a grown-up who's done some work on himself.
Sure.
That you were just trying to have an identity to fit in somewhere.
Right. And so then, and that uniform made me sort of worth more somehow.
Yeah,
because my self-worth wasn't there. So the Little League sports gave way to the heavy metal music, and my uniform changed into the mullet, the jean jacket, and I would just alienate.
That's a little more acceptable in a way, terms of at least you have a community. You're not just some kid at the movies in pads.
Right. But I didn't even have a community. I mean, I just had the rest of the school just oh, you creepy devil worshiper.
Oh, really? So you were the only one?
Well, I mean, I got into it pretty young, I got into the heavy metal 10.
Who were your
bands?
bands?
5th grade, 6th grade. Fuck, my first metal album was The Number of the Beast, Maiden.
Yeah.
That taught me that I was a metalhead, and then my first Motley Crue album when I was 11, kind of taught me why I was a metalhead. Right. Yeah. And then I was 12, and my first Slayer album taught me how bad the situation really was.
Yeah.
But those were bands that's what I was Metallica, all that. And then the heavy metal gave way to skateboarding, and then skateboarding I found some comfort.
Right. Well, then
I had the community that you're talking about.
That seems to make sense.
Yeah, and then the skateboarding, because I went to high school in England at the American school, and then once I was the last skater skating, I wasn't sort of comfortable enough in myself to be a skater on my own. So then I turned to alcohol and drugs. Well, I remember too, like I was like, man, I'm not going to be a skater anymore. So what's my identity going to be now? So, I could probably be pretty good at smoking pot.
Oh, it didn't start till after that shit? It wasn't
like anybody offered it to me or pressured me to do it. I went looking for it.
Sure, but were you getting could you tangibly feel yourself getting off on the pain and adrenaline of shit? I mean, do you feel that?
Not really, man.
Really?
I wouldn't even classify myself as an adrenaline junkie, really. It's
not even later?
I mean, not really. Like, I fucking hate roller coasters. I'm like scared of roller coasters.
Because you're not in control.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
when you're jumping off a building, it's like you're making a decision, but there's just some idiot running the thing. Yeah. And it seems like you had a certain amount of trust with your pirate friends who would strap you to shit.
Right.
But not some anonymous guy running a roller coaster. If it's Knoxville, you're okay. But
right. Right. But it's not adrenaline. It's more like, man, once I get this on video, then like the video is going to impress people or whatever.
Oh, right.
It's really?
So it's still about that?
It's still about the validation and the attention, man.
So when you strap into whatever you're about to do or whatever decision you're making, all you're thinking is like you got to get through it.
Got to get through it. Exactly. I could not have chosen the words better myself. I just got to get through it. Got to get through it, and then it's going to be fucking awesome once it's on
that's so
video.
weird because if you read it that way, because like when I watch, I've seen you do stuff here and there before, and I've watched a Jackass movie, and I've seen the second one. I know you, and then when I'm watching the special, there was always something like that I was a little uncomfortable with, and it wasn't anything you were doing. It was who you were, and I think that what it is, because I think I have it too, but I don't admit it, is a need for approval. Like,
right.
When I'm watching you do stuff, there's a humility to it because, you're not like, look what I can do. You're sort of like, right? Look at it. I did it. Come on. Where's my love?
Oh, yeah.
And it made me uncomfortable because, it's like, I can't. How am I going to help that guy?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sort of bizarre. Even Knoxville, that's what makes it so kind of, because I just wrote this down that there's no reason you guys should be so fucking likable, but you are because you after a certain point, even in the one man show that you have out now, it was sort of like you kind of like, it's not that you feel bad for you, but almost.
Sure.
Because you're looking at people going like, what's he doing? Why is he talking? Why is he talking about? Like they're just amazed at that you have the I guess it's courage to sort of like splay yourself open, because I think in the one man show the stories you tell are sort of vulnerable and kind of tragic and sad in some ways. I mean, to say you're a premature ejaculator and a sex addict, that's horrifying. It's like you can't even win there, But then when you do the stunts that you do, it is so it's not even that you think you're gonna die. You're just sort of like, you're so fucking wide open. You're just on a fucking stage, twitching unconscious in front of people, and you're like, oh my god. And you get up, you're like, hey, you're like, oh god, he made it. All right.
I was particularly tickled with myself that I chose to get choked completely unconscious, like about 3 minutes into my routine.
Really? You didn't, that wasn't planned?
Oh, no. I chose, but ahead of time, for that to happen, like at the top. Most people would say if you're going to get choked unconscious and dropped on your head, let that be at the end of the show.
But you seem to, like, how many times have you done that?
Oh, man. One time I got choked out 6 times in one day.
Now,
and it took me longer and longer to wake up each time. It got really ugly.
Really?
Yeah. And then it was just like, okay, 6, that's enough.
No brain damage?
Not that I'm aware of. No. But then again, like, I worry about like the CTE, the concussions, like that movie. Because man, I've hit my head a lot, and it didn't really occur to me until recently. Like, oh wow, that like the damage from hitting yourself in the head. It lays in wait like down the road.
It might get ugly later.
Right, like I'm okay now, but who knows what's waiting for me.
But were you ever diagnosed with a concussion? I mean, have you concussed?
I mean, I just know that I've hit myself in the head so hard that like I blacked out. You know, there's but that's happened a handful of times.
Did you remember waking up though? I mean,
well, yeah, I remember coming to and like oh wow, I just hit my head and I lost some time there. You know, like that's like super not good.
Part of the job. Well, that was what I noticed, like, when he dropped you, when he choked you out, is that you seem to know how to fall. Like, he you go down, but you're straight, and you
well, I was unconscious. There's no knowing anything at that point.
I know, but you handled it well. Like, you know, there's a moment where, well, that's the weird thing about you, is there's a moment where you somehow transcend our need to be concerned, because you just assume, well, it's
right.
Steve-O, he's gonna wake up.
Right, like a cartoon character.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then in that fucking taser thing, that was he really.
Oh, dude, that couldn't have been more real, and that was like really creepy.
No wrestling tricks.
Oh no, God no! That was there's no way to stop that thing. Like Taser is a brand name, and they're the only company that makes these
the 30-second taser.
Well, yeah, the 30-second Taser, which is the one I used, is the civilian version. The
right.
cops get the kind that where the cops hold it, and then they can keep administering 5 more increments.
Oh right.
Or increments of 5 seconds. But the civilian version, it's just as much voltage, just as much electricity, same deal, but it's designed so that you can shoot your assailant and then drop it and run for your life.
Oh, right.
So the 30 seconds is designed to give you 30 seconds to run for your life and get away.
Well, the good thing about talking about your shows, there's no spoilers, because even if you talk about it, it's not like, no, I'm not gonna watch him get tased. It actually makes you want to watch it more. Like,
well, and I thought it was going to be like 5 seconds. I was terrified of that.
That was your closer, right?
Right. Yeah. I was like, okay, so it's going to be 30 seconds. There's nothing that can be done to stop the 50,000 volts continuing for a full 30 seconds. And then I remember like reaching out to Knoxville, like, hey, dude, can you help me get psyched for this? He said, yeah, think about how hilarious it'll be, and you don't have to do anything. He said, you don't have to do anything, you just stand there, And I knew it was going to be terrible, but that's what helped. Is that okay? It's just going to happen.
That's his advice, dude. You just like, it's going to be hilarious.
He said, think of how funny it's going to be, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, oh, well, 30 seconds, like that might get kind of boring, And so I thought, all right. Then we're going to see how many questions I can answer. It'll be a 30-second Q&A. And then I asked Knoxville, how many questions do you think I'll be able to answer? And he sent a photo of him holding up his zebra.
Hey, you answered.
I got a few. Yeah.
Weren't tough questions.
Yeah, there were tough ones. Yeah, that was great. I was so just thrilled with it, man. I thought the whole thing, I imagine like I'll continue to evolve, to grow, to whatever, and maybe I'll look back on it and think, oh, that was, that point in my life. But I'm thrilled with how it came
it's just
out.
funny because there's like and this is just me thinking out loud, trying to sort of contextualize shit, is that like there's a vulnerability, that is unavoidable when you're literally being shocked with 50,000 volts. Like,
right.
You look weird.
That was the other thing, too, is that
you might shit your pants.
In preparing for it, I looked through YouTube to like 30 second, and I watched like a lot of different people like get tased for 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And there was I noticed right away a spectrum of how people handled it. There was like people handled it pretty well. Yeah. Maybe you could see there was fucking awful. Yeah. But they handled it pretty well. and then all the way to people just did not handle it well. And I thought I would be more on the...
Like making noises and shit?
Dude, shrieking and begging for it to stop. And just, like, I didn't expect that I was going to look cool. Not that I did. I didn't look cool, but I could have looked way more uncool.
Well, that's the funny thing for a kid who, like, always wanted to be cool. Like, you just, like, turn that inside out, and you're like, no, I'm going to look really uncool in almost everything that I do.
Yeah, and I don't understand. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, from when I was a little kid, like, where, like, I guess at a certain point it kind of started working, like what I wanted to happen, like, it sort of started happening.
Oh, right. You were getting the attention.
Right,
you were sort of like respected.
I got some respect.
Yeah,
I got some adoration. Some approval.
Weird women.
I made a living.
Yeah.
But then it's like it gets to a point where it's like, man, like I became so identified with this character of Steve-O and stuff, and then it's like, oh man.
When did things like when you're in high school? So you're a metal kid, and you started drinking, you started doing drugs.
It went heavy metal to skateboarding, from skateboarding to substances,
drugs.
right?
But there was no music involved then. It was just fucking.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I would listen to
But you went all in.
I had different genres of music for every little identity crisis I ever had.
Right.
So at this point, I listened to everything.
So So you went full on into drugs pretty quickly?
Pretty quickly, yeah. Like the first day I tried pot, and then I did the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day, and like it was like I hit the ground really.
And what how far did it go? How soon? Like what?
Within a couple months, I was taking acid pretty regularly.
Oh, you're an acid guy, mind blower.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it,
But there's this unique type of personality. I guess you're the kind of personality, like a guy like me. I took acid twice, and it was like, oh, thank God that's over. But like, but there were certain guys like you who were sort of like you learned how to work within it. I imagine.
Well, I mean, and typical to my form, right?
Yeah,
I knew better than to take acid. Even I had some I would take acid on the way to school sometimes, but only if I had been tripping like every day. So then the effect of it is more manageable.
Right.
But I knew, but if I knew I was gonna like really be tripping hard, I would take it at the beginning of the last class of the day.
Right.
So that I would just start to trip as I was leaving school. And so like I remember like going and I knew this one day
that you had a plan for taking acid during school is disturbing.
Right.
Like if I'm. You're saying it like most guys like me. I mean, if you're gonna be tripping all week, that's cool.
Right.
Nobody like you.
Right. I remember this was one day I knew this acid was gonna kick my ass, and I was like, and I remember walking into my last class of the day, sat down next to like the hot chick, put it on my tongue, and then turned to her and stuck my tongue out so she could see it on my tongue.
Right.
Like that'll make her think I'm cool.
There's always that weird mistake where you realize in a moment, even if it's in retrospect, that no one's living like you.
Right. It's the identical fucking thing that I did with ripping out the tooth.
Yeah.
When I walked in and stuck my tongue out so she could see the hit of acid on my tongue.
Like, in what world is someone going to go like, yeah?
Like, hey, what are you doing later? Yeah. I mean, I think in both cases with the tooth and with the acid, that I was clear that the girl wasn't gonna want me or love me or anything. So it was just like I can't have her. So ha.
Yeah. Fuck
that.
you. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna destroy myself.
I don't think it was a fuck you, but it was just like, yeah, I'm gnarly.
I
can't have you. You don't love me, but I'm gnarly.
Yeah.
You need to know that.
Yeah, I've got guts. Yeah. I have courage. I'm a warrior.
Right. I think that's really what it was.
But it's so interesting that you know that like when people talk about self-loathing or low self-esteem or something, we don't manifest itself through our work necessarily.
Right.
Well, I do to a certain degree. I talk about it, but you're literally like destroying yourself in front of everybody. But it's not. I don't think it's what people think right away when you're letting a whale shark eat shrimp out of your dick.
Right.
And they're not saying like that guy doesn't like himself, but. But it's sort of what it comes from.
For sure. I mean, so there's issues, man.
I can't even, do you remember all of the stunts? I remember the first one I think I saw you do where I was like, what the fuck, was when he snorted all that wasabi, and that was pretty mild in terms of a stunt.
It wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it played well. It definitely was received. It tickled people. At that point, I was like, my nose just didn't give a fuck, I was.
When did you start doing blow?
Started doing blow regularly, like when I was 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you finish high school?
I did. I finished high school. I actually was a relatively decent student until I got into drugs and you know.
Yeah.
Once I started drinking and doing drugs all the time, my grades took a nosedive, but I still, stuck it out and I pulled it off. I got early acceptance to the University of Miami.
Oh, that's like the biggest party school in the world, right?
I mean, it's a fairly academic school, like unfortunately situated in a place that's like lends
Miami.
itself to
yeah.
right. And so I didn't do very well. I bailed out.
Yeah.
I mean, I made it. I did all right my first semester. My second semester, not so much. And I returned as a second-year freshman.
Oh, that hurts.
And dropped it. Yeah, I showed up to my dorm room and it said freshman. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm a sophomore. Like, no. Your credits.
And then you bailed?
And then I bailed.
And then what did you do?
I got in a van with this kid. We drove out to California to try to work at a ski resort in Squaw Valley. And I was like, I'm going to become a stuntman. This is going to be great. Wound up having the government test drugs on me for money in Texas.
What are you talking about?
I got into this medical study that...
what kind of drugs?
It was called racdopamine hydrochloride, and they were trying to make it legal to give to pigs and cows so that the pigs and cows would have less muscle mass, less fat and more muscle. So it's leaner meat.
Yeah.
They could sell leaner meat.
They were trying it on humans to see what would happen if a human ate the meat?
Correct. In order for, they wanted to appeal to a more health-conscious consumer, but if the meat exists in the meat and then the people eat it, then it's entering the human body, and because it enters the human body, they have to now test to see, how much the humans can withstand.
And you just, why'd you get in, did you need money, or you're like, that sounds fun?
Yeah, when I dropped out of college, I guess Dad raised me with enough sort of pride and, or something that I just didn't have it in me to ask for, them to support me doing nothing.
Oh, really?
And so I was sort of trying to figure out my own way, and I needed money.
And what'd the drug do?
They kept giving it to us until somebody's resting heart rate was 150 beats a minute. And so it was pretty heavy. The dudes were drenched in sweat and stuff. And it turned out I have a pretty strong heart, so I was okay. And it paid $2,000 for 12 days.
Did anyone die?
Nobody died. No, nobody died. And then
how high did your heart rate get?
Barely cracked 100. I think only a couple times.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I had.
Did they end up approving that drug?
They did not. It's actually banned, I think, everywhere. I don't know. It's not only not approved. It's
thanks,
super
Steve.
banned.
Thanks for doing that work for all of us.
It might have been used somewhere in the world, but I recently Googled it, and Wikipedia just says terrible things about it.
Yeah. Another weird scar you might end up paying for a few years down the line.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. That might be waiting for me too.
And what'd you do after that?
After that, I wound up back at University of Miami living on everybody's floor.
That guy, huh?
Yeah, totally that guy. And then I roamed around following the Grateful Dead, selling drugs.
Like real drugs, or were you
selling acid and stuff?
But were you ripping off hippies with fake acid?
I never ripped off anybody with fake acid.
Good for you.
I'm pretty sure I didn't, I mean, if there's fake acid involved, I didn't know that. You didn't know,
right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's weird. So another identity shift. Now you're following the Grateful Dead. You go from skater
I got into
to
the
hard
Grateful
rock.
Dead. I got into the Grateful Dead. That was part of my drug identity.
Right. You have to. Yeah, I did that for a couple of years, but not as hardcore again. I went to a few shows and I lived with Deadheads, but you got on the road a bit.
I figured it out. You show up at the show and you go to the real Deadhead and you get 3 hits of acid for $5, and then you sell each for $5 a piece, and then you got $15. And then you buy an eighth of weed for $15, and you sell it for $30. And then you buy some shrooms, and then but once I had $100, I was pretty happy, and then I would just skateboard and hacky sack.
Never go in the show.
I was never
you're a parking lot guy.
Right, I was never worried about that. Yeah, and I had one guy that I was traveling with who would by the end of the day he would have literally hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands, or
no,
just
hundreds or thousands.
Yeah.
Not hundreds of thousands. He would have just all this money, and I remember just sort of being and I just wasn't ever that I don't know if entrepreneurial or just money driven.
Yeah.
I think I always was Because even when Jackass like came along, boy, did I not fucking do good business deals, you know?
Well, yeah, well, I think it goes either way. If you brought up with money, either you only think about money or you don't really.
I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that I was always pretty convinced that I was going to die like pretty young, you know?
Yeah,
like
well,
I figured out like, what do I need money for?
Not an unreasonably,
Right.
not an illogical train of thought. So you follow the dead for a while, and then what happens?
And then I wound up just sort of struggling, being homeless, like whatever. And then you know, ultimately sort of ran into like I had a used car, and at the point where like I wanted to like get in the car and carbon monoxide myself to death.
You were suicidal?
I've had like the idea that would be like a rad thing to do. I don't know however close I got to it. I wouldn't have known like if I was willing. When I really wanted to, I couldn't afford to fill the tank with gas. but I was just in this place and the car got stolen and I was just like, man, I don't even have a car to live out of. And I called my sister, really despondent, and I wound up moving in with her in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I lived in Albuquerque for like 2 years.
You did?
From 96 to 98.
But did you go to UNM or anything?
I did. I went to UNM. Like that was my deal with Dad. Like Dad would cover my rent, you know, to live with my sister. But that's it. As long as I got like a certain level of grades.
Yeah.
And you know, I started like I was so beaten down at that point. I was willing to actually like you know go to class and
Still using a lot of drugs. Or you took a break or?
That was where I started doing blow. You know,
Albuquerque.
Yeah, in Albuquerque. Yeah, and meth. I never really got into meth, but I never turned it down.
Right.
You know? And
it's a bit of a time commitment.
Right, and right, and by that point, I was I really was super focused about I want to be a stuntman.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to school like to get the grades and sort of survive, but like I was focused on videotaping and organizing like what my next stunt was going to be, putting together a reel.
Yeah.
And I found out while I was living with my sister about Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College, and that was where like I thought, man, if I can get into there, if I can get into clown college and graduate with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, then like people would take me more seriously as a stuntman.
Really?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Based on what?
Just I knew about like if I was a trained circus professional, you know, like I would be like a rad. There would be a radness about that.
Right. Like you're willing to do anything, and you can, but you're also like.
Right. I had the willingness to do whatever, and I was crazy, but that wasn't like there wasn't anything that seemingly professional about me.
Right.
So I thought if I was like
you're just a crazy kid.
Right. A trained circus professional who's crazy and like
a clown.
You know, right. Then.
Where's Ringling Brothers Clown College?
It was in Sarasota, Florida.
So did you go for the full ride over there?
Well, I graduated, but I wasn't one of the clowns got picked to be in the circus.
How long is that school?
I mean, once you get into it, it's like a summer. You know, it's more
really?
it's more like boot camp for the circus.
And what'd you learn?
I learned how to walk on stilts, which I made
showed
useful.
Up in Jackass. Yeah.
I made useful in a number of ways. I learned how to put on clown makeup.
Did you learn how to clown?
A little bit. Not like I wouldn't say that my skills were exceptional in that area, but I went on to have a career as a circus clown, and I think I did a reasonably good job.
Yeah, but there was no specific clowning class where you.
We had clowning, we had dance, clowning, skills. Acrobatics, like we had classes all day, trained 14 hours a day.
Really?
Yeah, and I was in it to win it, man. Like when I got there, I sort of fell in love with the dream. Of course, you know, within the first week of clown college, they have to cart me off to the hospital because I'm drunk, need to get my head stapled together because of what I did after 14 hours of training, drunk. You know,
not
like,
so funny.
Right, and so I didn't make a very good.
How'd you rip your head open?
Skateboarding while I was drunk, like. You know,
you didn't feel it. I'm starting to think that like a lot of the shit that looks like it would hurt other people, you just weren't even registering.
No, I've never had like an exceptional threshold for pain or anything like that. I mean, I feel pain like anybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just sort of get through it. Just gotta
so
get
did
through
you
it.
like? I know you have to design your own face and everything. Did you do all that?
Right. Yeah. The first day at clown college, they just hand you a makeup kit. and they give you no instruction. They're like their deal is, here's the makeup, you learn how to use it, and you just do it every day, and you figure it out.
And did you settle on a face?
Uh-huh. I have the same face the whole time.
Really?
Uh-huh.
And like today, if you were to put on your clown makeup?
Yeah. Every so often, like something will come up where I do. I don't know that I've ever gone more than a year or two without
putting on your face,
without getting
your clown
clown
face
makeup or something or other. Yeah.
So where did you work as a professional clown?
I didn't get picked for the Ringling Brothers, so I went back to Albuquerque, and I'm selling pot, and
Yeah.
And
Scary clown selling pot. Did you sell pot in your clown makeup?
I never sold pot in clown makeup, but I sold it out of the room where the fancy clown costume hung in the closet.
It's like I told this story on the show before, but one time I did a PA job when I first moved to LA. It was Circus Vargas, and they were out on a lot, and there were clowns. The two guys who were clowns for Circus Vargas were there, and after the shoot, they were like, "You want to come back to the trailer and get high?" And I just remember this moment where I was like about to get high with clowns. I'm like, "You guys got to take off the makeup because I don't think I could handle the." with clowns in full makeup.
Dude, when I wound up working as a clown on Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines.
Really?
They're like we were only actually in clown makeup once a week, but otherwise we were called interactive performers, and we would sort of take on different characters, and we would do shows and they'd warm up the crowd in the theater.
Oh yeah.
So all I did was perform.
How was that?
It was great, man. I got $625 a week. One of the first times, and they paid me in cash every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I and mostly $100 bills.
Right.
And so one of my first times I got paid, I got my clown buddy filming me while I'm stapling $100 bills across my body, and I was like, I'm the $1,000 man, because I had never made
that much money.
Yeah, that was my first time.
And you thought that you have to staple them to your body.
I was like, I have this much money, I'm fucking making a video with it. And
oh right.
Give me the stapler.
So the videos of doing that kind of shit
never stopped.
Yeah,
it never stopped.
That was your thing.
I never put it down.
A lot of things have been pulled out of your body and out of your skin, like staples,
right.
Darts.
For sure, man. Yeah, and then a lot of it stays in there. I got a BB in my nipple.
Yeah.
For 6 years now, almost.
Why did you get it out?
Because fuck, man, it's super cool. Like in my book, I got in my book.
Super cool again. To who? Some things never change.
It's somehow fascinating, I have a picture of a Wee Man, because this was something we filmed for Jackass 3D. It was important to me to film it, and everybody knew that it would never get used. But I called it BB gun nipple piercing.
Yeah.
And we're gonna shoot. We're trying to shoot my nipple off with a BB gun or whatever.
Yeah.
Just which was just dark and gross.
Yeah.
But Wee Man did it, and he shot it at such an angle that it went into my nipple and stayed in. And of course the footage didn't get used for anything.
Right.
And but I told the story in my book, and I put it in the photo section, a picture of Wee Man, a little before and after. You could see the close-up shot of the nipple.
Yeah.
And then I said, on the caption, if you see me and you're curious, just ask, you can feel it still in there, you can feel it, just ask. So people will ask me every once in a while, can I feel the BB? And I love it.
Do you sense a certain type of person is your fan?
I think that there are different levels of fan, but I think that at some level, it almost defies demographics. And I say that because everybody is fascinated on some level driving by an accident.
Right.
They want to sort of slow down and check it out.
Right.
And so that's kind of what has been our art, is to create accidents on purpose, knowing that they're inherently fascinating to people.
Yeah.
There's something primal about that. And I think beyond that, I think that you've got that primal kind of urge to witness an accident, and then you've got us being, I guess there's something endearing about how we've been like willing to be splayed open, you know, and to sort of okay with looking uncool and being vulnerable, you know, and
in the most extreme way possible.
Right. So like the endearing plus the primal, I think, like creates a combination that's almost universally.
That moment where Knoxville wakes up after what's his name knocked him out. What was that guy's name? The Butterbean.
Butterbean. Right.
Where Knoxville fucking comes to and he goes, "How's Butterbean?" To me, that's all of it right there. Like,
right.
How's that guy? Just fucking leveled him. Oh my God. So what now? So like in the show, you talk about getting sober from drug addiction, and then you know, after that, sex addiction to a fairly disturbing degree. What were the events that led to you like finally really getting sober?
For chemically sober?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was where Knoxville, you know, I flamed out pretty hard when it was time to get sober, and
but like you just kept drinking, and they all knew it, and it was all part of the atmosphere. But at what point, you know, what happened where it became a concern to like Johnny?
Oh man, like with just the drugs really sped up the process for me.
Coke?
Coke, yeah, for sure. I mean, I can thread my nose with a shoelace. I got the hole going through, so there's a pretty big hole through.
Yeah.
And Coke was always a thing, and I would get like with ketamine and PCP and nitrous.
Because you'll do like that's weird. Because you'll do anything with your body and anything with your brain. Like you with the same sort of thing. I'm going to get through it. I imagine that. Some of those drugs, because like you lose control.
Yeah, and I think that's more specifically like I like psychosis was like a regular thing for me. I would be like on coke like once I got into like my third day of a coke bender, and I'm inhaling nitrous, like, you know, almost like to the exclusion of air. I'm just trying to inhale nitrous oxide and be on cocaine. And I would go through these episodes where I was hearing voices.
Yeah, no, I've had that. Yeah, cocaine psychosis.
I fucking loved it too, man. Like people would be walking around my apartment, like they're like they were never there, but like I see them.
Oh, right,
you know?
right.
Like I see people walking through the walls and shit.
Surprise friends.
Yeah, and I'm hearing voices and all this, and
you were entertained by it.
I loved it, man. I fucking loved it. Like frankly, like I miss that. You know, like a lot of people think like, oh, you know, like a drink would be nice. Like, it'd be cool if I could just smoke a joint. Like, no, like I want to pile drugs into my body until there's a fucking room full of people who don't exist. That's what I want.
I'm sorry that you miss your friends.
And my behavior, like with the psychosis, was just got creepier and creepier. And
did you ever think you were actually actively trying to fucking die?
No, I remember at one point being in this big swiveling office chair and sort of, you know, like a big pile of drugs in front of me, coke and nitrous and whatever, and then all like everything else.
You had a
like,
tank, I guess.
I never had a tank, man. I would have like a.
Oh, you weren't committed, huh?
No, I was committed, but I just didn't know how to get a tank. Like
no dentist friends. Well, somehow we got a tank in college from some guy who worked for a dentist.
I know. I was just so like I was happy enough to have like the guy from the head shop who was also like a customs agent or something.
Yeah.
Like, and I would get there were 24 cartridges per box and 25 boxes per case.
Right.
And so, like, I know because I got so many cases, it's 600.
Yeah.
You know, 600 per case.
Right.
And so I would just do case after case. You know, it wouldn't be unusual for me to do 600 of the cartridges in a day.
Oh my God, what a weird fucking addiction!
And the whole floor of my apartment was just like
nitrous canisters.
Dude, it was just I was swimming in them, and I was just like it was almost like a game to see, like, to fill up like the balloons, you know, before I would still hold the breath so I can just only be breathing. Dude, crazy. Yeah. And that's
the one thing I remember about nitrous is coming back into consciousness, like
right, for sure, and it was killing me. And then I remember that, so I'm in this chair and I'm looking at all these drugs and I'm thinking to myself, I'm fucking dying. You know, I'm dying. Like I am literally killing myself here. And I thought the words, like, specifically, I thought, I don't care if I die. And I leaned forward to just snort and like more. And as I thought, I don't care if I die, and I leaned forward like physically, like my experience, the chair that I was in just spun around, man. Like this fucking, like as if there was like a big,
ghost.
huge guy.
Yeah.
Like almost like it turned into a mechanical bull style. It spun around. Like, yeah, of course, like, I mean, this is like a tactile hallucination, but it was such
No, maybe one of those guys you were making up was like, you've had enough.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to this day, I like now that marks a moment where it was like, I don't care if I die in some fucking like higher power, like whatever
No,
it is.
I had that. I know what you're talking about.
Like the message was so clear
Right.
when that chair spun. Like, think again. Like, it is important that you,
Right.
you know, think again. Like you gotta not die. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta get better.
The first time I got sober was in the psychosis where I was hearing voices, and I remember out loud going like, how far out can I go? And a voice I'd never heard before, like right next to my head, said, "You've gone far enough." And I left the fucking next day, and I left town. I left L.A. and I got sober the first time I didn't stay sober.
Right. I didn't do anything about it.
No.
You know, I mean, that night I remember that night, like, there was this, like, whole, like, intervention, like, of, like, spirits, and, like, God was in my apartment. It was just, like, dependent, like, the next day, like, my buddy's hard, like, you know, God was in my apartment last night, man, and I'm going to get sober. No more drugs, you know,
Right.
I'm going to be sober. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then, like, the next day, like, I am at it again.
Got a little rest. And
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, but I remember, like, when I got to rehab, like, when I finally was ready.
Well, did they do an intervention? Did all those
they
jackets?
did. Like, they did. I was, like, broadcasting my downward spiral in virtual real time on YouTube and MySpace, and emailing, like, 200 people.
Oh, so
when
yeah,
that knocks us.
very
So
public.
Very public, man. I was like, you know, like just email blasting Knoxville and everything. Like, oh, like the last people in the world. Like, I cringed to think of like who I was emailing all this stuff
Yeah.
to, and
that's still out there.
Sure, yeah, but I'm grateful for that today because
Yeah.
like that's the fire and the humiliation that brought about is really what inspired the willingness.
Yeah,
you know?
and did they actually come over and get you?
Well, yeah, Knoxville reached out to Dr. Drew, and he's like, hey, man, Steve was going to die. Dr. Drew, of course, was on the email list as well. Dr. Drew said, I agree. He said, I agree. We're about to lose him. And so Dr. Drew instructed Knoxville to just get over and just get me into the psych ward. They said,
Yeah.
you got to duct tape him, throw him in the trunk, whatever.
Not a rehab at first, a literal psych
Yeah,
ward.
5150 him. And
Yeah.
so they showed up 8 guys strong. And at this point, like,
Did they film it?
I flamed out. Well, no, I did, though.
The one thing they didn't film.
I know. I flamed out so hard. I mean, I got arrested for vandalism. Like, my neighbor was calling the cops all the time because I was so out of control.
Yeah.
And so, like, I you know, started. So I would just piss off the neighbor. I would be pounding on his wall.
Yeah.
I wound up pounding a hole through the wall. And so, like, now the cops come over to arrest me for vandalism because I'm now, like, yelling at the guy through the hole in the wall while I'm looking into his apartment.
Oh, no.
You know, so the cops come to arrest me.
Fucking nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all fucked up on ketamine. I don't know what's going on. I pounded a hole in the wall. The cops show up. They're like, we got to take you to jail. And I'm standing there with no shirt on, no shoes. And
they know who you are.
yeah, they know. They're like, we got no choice. We have to take you to jail, and it's going to be fucking cold. So if you want to put on a shirt and some shoes before we take you, we'll let you do that. Which gave me an opportunity. I could have gone into my apartment, take the big bag of fucking cocaine out of my pocket, and maybe leave it in the apartment.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I tell them, like, fuck a shirt, fuck shoes, let's go. You know?
With the cocaine in it.
So I get booked into jail with the fucking, you know.
Like an 8-ball or?
No, it wasn't anything that much, but enough, you know. I
Yeah.
had a bag, and so they arrested me again, and I was in jail for a few days. But I get back from jail, and there's the eviction notice on the wall. Get the fuck out in 3 days, you
Yeah.
know. And so I go on a crazy bender, and by the time like I'm
And
back,
are you charged with cocaine possession?
Totally charged with cocaine possession. And within a couple hours, I'm fucking, like, all fucked up on ketamine, jumping up and down. Got my buddy filming me. I'm jumping up and down on a parked car, screaming.
The drug buddy.
Screaming, God is the sun. And getting, like, you know, like, I mean, like, within 2 hours of getting out of jail. And
you putting that out in the world? You
Oh,
posted it?
yeah. Oh, yeah, posted it. Yeah. I actually had them post it while I was in the psych ward, you know? Like, giving instructions to what to, you know? And it was just so fucking gnarly, man. And so then now I get back to my apartment, and I got to be actually cleaned out, like the next day. But before I clean out, I'm emailing my mass email list. I got to be out of my apartment tomorrow, so we got to hurry up and film. I got to jump out of my fucking bedroom window of the apartment building. And I'm going to need something to land on because it's like 25 feet to the sidewalk. And so I'm like, Knoxville, you guys come on, like, bring me, like, I don't care, like, cardboard boxes, preferably a hot tub, something to land in on the sidewalk. And I want to ride a motorcycle through the living room and out the sliding glass door and jump out onto the roof of the building next door. And these are my stunts, and I want to make them happen. And I'm telling the guys, like, bring me something to land on. Come on, like, be here at 10 a.m., you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't fucking come, like, I'm gonna fucking jump anyway. I don't give I'll find out how many bones get broken when I land on the sidewalk.
Right.
Fucking, I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
Which qualified me for the 5150.
Right.
You know? Which I sent to 200 people. I promise I'm gonna jump, you know?
Yeah.
I'm ready to die. And so Knoxville responded, he wrote, "What's with the early call times? Sheesh." Like, bring the cameras, you know? He said, "We'll be there, you know, but can we make it noon?" and I was like, "Okay, noon it is, cool."
Yeah.
And so what happened was I scheduled my own intervention.
Yeah. Who showed up? A lot of friends?
Dude, they showed up. Knoxville. It was a whole crew of jackass. Like, the director, Jeff Tremaine, Dmitry Eliaskovich, the director of photography, this camera guy, Rick Cossack, the sound guy, Cordell, the executive producer, Trip Taylor.
Oh, yeah?
And then a couple other just big dudes.
Yeah.
Because
But none of the cast?
No, none of the cast was there for that, no.
Yeah.
But Knoxville and the rest, there was 8 guys.
Had Ryan died yet?
No. No, Ryan died. This was 2008 when I got sober. Ryan died in 2011. And, and so it was just like Dr. Drew was really clear. Like, if you got to tie him up, if you got to beat him up, or just get him into the hospital. And so they took me to the hospital, 5150. I was pretty sure.
Did they have to tie you up or beat you up?
Well, yeah. That's not to get me there. Not to get me there. But what happened when I got to the hospital, I thought I was going to just calmly explain that this was a misunderstanding.
Right.
I didn't realize they printed out my emails. And so there was no talking my way out of it. And then when I found out I wasn't going to talk my way out of it, then I just got belligerent. Like, fucking, I want to smoke a cigarette now, or this, that. Like, I'm trying to throw
it's
chairs.
Like an episode of Cops. You always wonder what drives a guy to be like, "Yo, fuck you."
Exactly.
You know you're done.
Right. I remember the moment when I went to go grab the chair, and maybe I got it up over my head to throw it. Just dudes appeared.
At the hospital?
Yeah, at the hospital. And dudes appeared, like these orderly guys, you know, like appeared out of nowhere, just like with the swiftness, and just grabbed me and slammed me down onto this fucking, this stretcher bed thing. And someone jammed a needle into my butt cheek, and then that was it. I just took a nap. I was
over.
I was like Thorazine or whatever it is. It just knocks your ass out.
And you woke up in the hospital.
And I woke up, and then now.
Were you strapped down?
I can't remember. I remember seeing the straps, and I'm kind of claustrophobic, so that made me a little bit like more reasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I woke up from the nap, they didn't have to strap me down. I woke up and now I'm like in the psych ward. They changed my status from 5150, which is 3 days involuntary hold, to 5250, which is 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a fucking mess, man. And I'm in there, and they had me like for a little over a week, and finally I was like, okay, it's time.
And you went to rehab?
Then I went to rehab, yeah.
And you've stayed sober since?
Stayed sober ever since, yeah.
That's fucking amazing.
And then,
and what were you doing in the psych ward? They were evaluating you, and
I was just like, fuck. I went to like my home group, and I was like, I said, I shared openly, like, all the work I'm putting into my steps, I feel like all I'm getting out of it is just self-hatred, and I hate myself. Like,
interesting, yeah.
I just hate everything I'm looking at in my step work just makes me hate myself.
Right.
And I just like, I was just feeling suicidal, man. I'm just like, I hate myself so much,
Right.
So my home group's at Los Encinas Hospital, and so they just at the end of the meeting just walked me across the grounds
to the psych ward.
To the psych ward, yeah. And I was in that second psych ward. For like 3 weeks. At one point Mike Tyson came through.
Oh, really? To visit you, or just
no,
because
Yeah, it was like my last day was like his like second day or something. You know?
Did you talk to him?
Yeah, totally. I was talking to him. I was begging him to film a stunt with me when we got out. I'm like, Mike, I'm not asking you to punch me. I'm just asking you to hold your fist out and keep it still with your elbow locked and let me run into it with my face.
Yeah. Wait, what did he do? What did
He says, I don't want to hurt you, Steve.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we wound up doing that at the Charlie Sheen roast a few years
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
You know?
Did you do it?
Yeah, I broke my nose on his fist. Like, you know, which was great because Bam had broken my nose on the Jackass 3D, and I let it heal. It fucked up. Then I went to a nose doctor after 2 months, and he said, I'd love to help you, but it's already healed this way. So now if you want me to fix it, I got to re-break it with a chisel.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
Then I dove into Mike Tyson's fist at the Charlie Sheen roast and super broke it. And then this kung fu instructor comes out of the crowd and fucking says, dude, it needs to be set straight now. And I'm like, okay. And he fucking fixed it perfect.
Things work out. Just stay sober.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, and
I like this that this obsession that no matter where you are, what you're doing, or how fucked up you are, that the obsession is always like, gotta get this on camera. like that was what was driving you. This need to document.
After that second psych ward, that was sort of the point. Like when I was in the first psych ward and I went to rehab, like I was almost like looking at it like, yes, I was serious about sobriety, but I was like, man, you know, I'm gonna get sober and then like I'm gonna get like respect and like, you know, like the world's gonna somehow owe me. I'm gonna do a lot of good, and
right.
It was kind of like I was getting sober for what I could get out of it.
Right.
And by the time I the steps beat me down.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then it was like it got real, and it was like, okay. And I remember being in the, I mean, I feel weird even talking about like the book and stuff, but I'm reading in the book in the second psych ward, it's in the family afterward chapter about how like the past of every alcoholic is, you know, there's specters of you know,
right.
shame, humiliation,
right.
and all of this. You know, all of this, you know, worst shit we ever did, like, comes to be useful, you know? And
right.
it becomes not only an asset to us,
right.
but really, like, the greatest asset that we have.
Right.
I remember reading that and thinking, okay, so it's not like I need to hate myself and judge myself. I'm not, like, now I just need, like, that. It becomes my asset. Everything.
Right,
that
you stay sober and you share your experience.
Right, everything that made me hate myself became the asset that I just don't want to be that way anymore.
Right.
Now I'm not gonna work a program of sobriety for what I can get out of it.
Right.
Now I'm gonna work a program of sobriety to fundamentally change the person I am, so that I don't hate myself.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
So my motivation became sort of correct.
Right,
know?
reframing it.
Like you're right.
Training your brain.
I was in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great moment.
And once I got out of that second psych ward, I went back into rehab, and I just put down the camera. I put down everything, and I was just focused on being sober. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And then when I was at 6 months, and like you said, like, it took a long time to fucking. You know, like after
clear out the fucking ghosts and goblins.
Right. After 6 months, I left that rehab and moved into a sober, like a halfway house.
Yeah.
And I remember going to speak at the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
At 6 months, and then sometime like way after that, I was at like a meeting or something. The guy was like, "Dude, I was there when you came to speak at the Salvation Army. Man, we were worried about you."
You thought he was going to say thank you?
Man, we were worried about it. I was in there talking about like reincarnation and spirits and ghosts and goblins and like, you know.
We were worried about it.
Yeah, so but I stayed in sober living, you know, like the halfway house until I had 2 years of sobriety. And so
wow, you really locked in.
Yeah, I mean, like.
Did you find that did you get diagnosed with any other mental issues?
I did. I got the bipolar diagnosis, and I got a bunch of meds with it. But I honestly think that you pile enough fucking chemicals into anybody that did as much drugs and the kinds of drugs I was doing would be bipolar too, is kind of what I think.
Sure, so you waited it out.
Yeah, I don't have any of that like psych med deal now.
And do you experience depression or mania?
Not on any kind of level that I used to.
Right.
And I also I think that I don't experience depression or mania without like an event tied to it.
Right.
It doesn't just come out of nowhere.
So it's like
I will react like really heavily and unreasonably.
Yeah.
Like life is not okay. Over little stuff.
Sure.
But there's always something.
But that's just fucking being an addict.
Sure. There's always something to motivate, like whatever.
Right. You can track it.
Right.
That's good. And when did you wrangle with the sex addiction? Because you talk about that.
Yeah.
How many years into your sobriety did that start to happen?
Well, I mean, shit. Like, I think the sex, acting out sexually was always there.
Yeah.
Where like it got pretty fucking dark, man.
Well, the event you talk about in the special, it's funny in a way, but it's pretty dark.
It's dark and it's also nothing compared to
right. Right.
Like that's not even that big of a fucking deal. Like what I remember, like the sex got super out of control because once I started doing like stand up on the road, and after every show I'm taking photos with the whole crowd. And I wasn't even selling merch. I was just like, it was basically auditioning to see who was going to suck my wiener that night, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, it was, and I would keep coming back, like from my like gigs, like you leave on a Wednesday, you come back on a Sunday or a Monday.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'd, talk to my sponsor and I'd be like, dude, like, I just, like, I really, like, feel shitty about myself for like, like hooking up with all these chicks and I don't want to do it and I just keep doing it, you know? And I just couldn't stop, man. And
that's that sort of like weird sexualizing, wanting love and shit, and just like feeling that connection.
Yeah, just like I just wanna get off, and then
connect.
As soon as you do, then all of a sudden like in comes this cold dark. Like,
the shame and because they leave and you feel like you treated them badly, and because you realize like at some level that there's some unresolved thing where you're kind of like compelled towards the shame, like because like that it only ends there, and like there's
the whole cycle. And I was reading about it too. I was reading about like the cycle of like preoccupation, of like ritualization, like acting out, and shame, and it just repeats, and it repeats, and it gets worse and worse. And man, it was so gnarly. And at that point, I wound up. I was already seeing the sex therapist, and then I was like, I just dove in fully, and I went like into a full. Like outpatient, an intensive outpatient program, like full on sex addict rehab.
Really?
Yeah, like it was like a 2-week outpatient program, like just all day, every day for 2 weeks, and then when I left, and then I started bringing my buddy on the road to be like the cock block, Right. And I went full celibate, man. I didn't even jack off. I did not blow a load, period. For a year and 3 months.
Holy shit!
Yeah, and then I tried to, and then I got into a relationship, and that was a disaster.
Yeah,
it just didn't work. And
how'd you feel not blowing a load for a year and 3 months?
I don't know moderation, So it's just like, that was just my next thing, So it was just like,
Did it help your brain?
I never had a fucking wet dream because, like, in the dream where, I remember a bunch of dreams where I'm about to blow a load, but then I'm like, I can't lose my time. Yeah. I can't lose my sexual sobriety in my dream.
Yeah.
And so, whatever. Like, at this point, it's like I've known like being promiscuous, and it doesn't work for me. I've been completely celibate. Like that's just sexual anorexia. It doesn't work for me. And I've tried to be in relationships, and I just haven't been successful there either. So that's like the thing, I mean.
But are you hopeless, or are you just sort of like gonna keep?
I'm not hopeless.
Trudging the road of happy destiny.
I'm not hopeless at all, man. Like I just think that I just got to keep working on myself and try to figure out like. How I think to sort of pick the relationships better. I think there is a relationship for me that will work. Yeah. I just haven't picked successfully. Sure. And I think that like the rigidity of I just need to find some kind of balance.
And do you have a spiritual life?
For sure, man. Like I got into TM, and that's been cool. I've been kind of slouching on it a lot lately, but yeah, like all the 12-step shit and the prayer and meditation, like
you do it.
I do, man.
And you're vegan now too. And you're standing up for the animals, climbing up on shit, and getting into trouble.
Right.
You're using your skill set for an actual reason other than to just like, I can't fucking believe I did that. It knew it had to come in useful. What'd you do? You climbed up a crane and
I climbed up a crane, man. Yeah, it's amazing how dumb that was. Like I'm trying to protest SeaWorld, so I go to a fucking random construction site nowhere near SeaWorld. I fucking climbed this 150-foot crane with an inflatable toy whale. You know, which is way too high up in the air for anybody to see the fucking whale.
Right.
Like,
so you still got a little your old behavior. That's old behavior. It's like
dumb shit.
Steve O's on a crane with a whale.
Right. And like you know, people can see like, oh, maybe he's gonna jump, whatever. And I'm in the middle of Hollywood, and so like by the time I get the fucking whale inflated, there's 80 firefighters, 18 cops, a helicopter, and a SWAT team. You know, and I'm just like, you know, like a reasonable person would be like, oh, this has gone too far. I better like, hey guys, I'm like, nope, I'm fucking inflating my whale, man. And then I'm blowing up my fireworks like I said I would. You know?
Did you?
Yeah, I taped 3 artillery shells, which are the thing that you drop into the tube and then it shoots up into the sky and then makes the display.
Yeah.
But I taped them to the crane itself and lit them like arm's distance away from me so that the, you know.
And you got no rope holding you?
No, like I did. I got one of those fucking clips.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah.
But yeah, just blowing up fucking fireworks while the helicopter's circling like just immediately around me. I'm like,
oh fuck. And what'd you get? You got arrested?
I got arrested.
For what? How many charges?
5 charges. Like inciting or no, not inciting, creating a false emergency.
Yeah.
Aggravated trespassing.
Yeah.
And then 3 fireworks related charges.
And where's that at now?
Now, like, well, I got sentenced to 30 days in jail. I turned myself in. I was released in 8 hours.
Yeah.
They have like this weird quadrant of streets where I'm not supposed to go, or if I'm gonna go, I have to have permission, which is like
because they think you have a relationship with that crane. Like, don't let him get near that thing. He's gonna run.
Whatever it is, there's like a little area where I need permission if I want to go there.
Yeah.
And I have like 80 hours of community service, which
that'll be good for you.
Oh, I was able to choose. Like I asked, can I do it with the Humane Society? And so I did 25 hours this past week, man.
Yeah. Doing what specifically?
Fuck, I've done it all, man. I was filling rabies syringes with rabies vaccinations.
Yeah.
I've done cat trapping, like outreach going around East LA,
oh, wow.
Offering free spay and neuter services and vaccines. Like,
look at that, man! They forced you into service.
Yeah, I've just clean exactly. You know,
great.
Which is super cool, man. And you know, like I've gone like taken animals to the shelters, been at the shelters, and like I adopted 2 cats in the process.
Yeah. I got
the first shelter I went to, I adopted a cat, and then the second shelter I went to, I adopted a cat.
That's
now I'm
good.
up to 2. I got 2 rescue dogs, 2 rescue cats.
Oh, that's sweet, man. Well, good, man. I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah, man.
You seem pretty good.
I'm in pretty decent shape, you know. All things considered.
You look good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
man.
And the special's great, and
it's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's great because like you know, like I'm coming to it with my own baggage about stand up and what you know. But the thing is, it's like it's really a show about you, and it's handled with you know with humor and humility, and you know the little bit of stunts which you're good at. It seems like you know like I see it like there's part of me that like just thinking about you. Like, there'd be really no reason why you couldn't actually put together a show that would rival a magic show. You know, just stunt-driven. Do you know what I mean? Like a Vegas show. Mm-hmm. Don't you think? If you did bigger stunts?
It would be... it's difficult to figure out, like, what's repeatable.
You mean without dying?
Right. Like, the higher impact stuff is...
It's a one-off?
It's tough to repeat. Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, don't die, buddy.
And dude, like, a super honor, man. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a real big deal to do this, man. Thank you.
Well, it was great. I appreciate it.
Cool.
that's it. That's our show. I really was surprised and excited at Steve's recovery and his disposition around it. I liked him, and I didn't know how that would go. So what else? You can go to WTFpod.com, see the new thing, and get tickets to my Trippany House shows in May and June, small shows here in L.A., and do whatever you do over there. Check out the new site, though. I'm sorry I'm a little heavy-hearted, but I'm a little heavy-hearted today. What are you going to do? And I guess I'll play a little guitar. This is sort of a riff like that song I was talking about. And I've done it before, but that Rivulet song, All right, well, let's play it out. And, hey, I just want to say, Patton, my heart goes out to you, and I'm terribly sorry for your loss. And a lot of people love you, man.